I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting for December 1st, 2020 at 6:01 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Attendance roll call.
Commissioner Groff.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver. Alderman Kubaki.
Here.
Commissioner Gazana.
Here.
Commissioner Buckmaster. Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Mayor Petfalski.
Present.
Planner Butowski.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Wednesday, November 25th.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from November 9th, 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Old business for consideration, Resolution PC 073-2020. Approval of a 3-lot certified survey map for Dave Weiss located on Northview Drive, tax key number 2210.999.
Move to approve.
All right, discussion. Adam, you want to get us to where we're at right now?
Sure. So quick follow-up from last meeting. This was deferred to have some other plan commission members chime in, as well as to do a little more digging on some options for roadway improvement here. The main item that was really the question of concern was, would this land division need to provide any kind of connection to the property to the east since it has division potential? So the direction was to have staff come back with 3 different options. Most of these options were kind of talked about last time. First option is to require a full-blown dedication at this time between the existing right-of-way that Mr. Weiss is dedicating, extending to the property to the east. Another option, the second option that is out there is an easement. An easement is not a bad option if you are only concerned with emergency access, but not typically a good option if you're actually looking for an actual future roadway connection. And then, and the big thing with the easements is the land is always the land is always still owned by the owner of the parent land, where a dedication or other situations, that's not the case. Third option is reservation. A reservation is similar to a dedication. They were more commonly used in the past. They are not as common nowadays, as they're so similar to a dedication. Usually if someone wants a reservation, they just dedicate it. And then the fourth option, which this is kind of the option staff is thinking might be a pretty good option, is basically requiring a restriction or note to be placed on the CSM for lot number 3 that states that if said lot has any proposals for other future land divisions or construction upon it, then at that time the Plan Commission, Common Council, and or Public Works and Safety Committee would need to review the proposal at that time to determine if a road extension would be necessary to extending to the east. So basically what it's doing is, since there is no immediate plan to the east, Mr. Weiss doesn't have specific plans that he's made us aware for lot 3. It basically pushes that decision down the road once something would be known further about what could really happen out here. So that's really, I think, the biggest thing that we were kind of directed to come back with.
Well, I thought one of the items was to find out what the school was going to do.
They don't have specific plans.
Okay.
We did talk with them, and it's not, they're not developers.
We don't have plans right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess kicking the can down the road isn't the worst thing to do at this point, but I just feel that we put this gentleman in a position, and the people that are on the roadway in a position where, because of a lack of a solid plan from the school district, we're kind of handcuffed. We really can't do too much.
I guess I would disagree a little bit, just for the fact that we have the ordinance written for reasons of developable property. Doesn't mean that there's necessarily always going to be a plan yet on it. We just we try to, I mean, the whole idea of planning is to look down the road and make decisions today that will give us a good outcome tomorrow. So we know there's a potential that that property to the north could be developed. It may not. Maybe it would just turn into sports fields or whatever. But there's a potential to it. So that's why the ordinance is written as such that we don't want to landlock potential development in the future or cause bad planning in the future. I should probably just say that as more of a term on it. So I think the whole idea of essentially kicking this down the road makes the most sense on it, because it gives us time to actually see what may develop at either time.
I think one thing is if you do push it down the road, it saves the potential, call it an error-making process of putting it in a spot that doesn't make sense for anybody, for Mr. Weiss, for the adjacent property, rather than just arbitrarily picking a spot to pick a spot now. You know, maybe it can come up at a time when there are other plans for Mr. Weiss's lot or the adjacent lot.
So what legally then occurs if we do take that option? Is there some sort of caveat on the property itself that says no development can take place within this area, because we just don't know?
You mean right now by not taking action?
Yeah.
Well, the caveat on it is once anything happens on that property, it triggers it coming back again, and then we are forced to make a decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I do agree, because it then at least earmarks, or it ensures that no development's gonna take place with, whether it be by error or by intent, without us at least seeing it again.
You know, the city commonly uses the CSM itself as a real estate restriction tool, if you want to word it that way, for these kinds of notes. So we do notes like this all the time that require further something down the road.
Mr. Weiss?
Well, I prefer to have no restrictions on my properties. And part of it is that when I look at, first of all, somebody rezoned it for a school, because it wasn't originally a school. So I assume when they bought it in 2007 or 2008 or whatever it was, that they changed the zoning at that point in time. Would that be a fair assumption?
Correct.
And so they zoned it for a school, which it is. It's not zoned for a subdivision right now. And so now you're trying to tell me that I have to plan for their ability to sell that land off in the future, which doesn't make sense to me, that, because when they put the school in, they didn't come to me and they didn't dedicate access for me. I had 30 developable acres. They never came to me. And right now they have approximately, 30, 40 developable acres?
And actually, you bring up a good point, because if they do develop it, they will be required to,
Provide
based on what you have going on in yours and what your plan is, they will be forced to do an appropriate plan that would coexist with yours. So before they rezoned it, it was zoned agriculture. The same thing, it's a different zoning. So doesn't mean just because it's in institutional now or previously in agriculture, it's raw land. So that's what we look at.
I get it, but it could be a football field, it could be a baseball diamond, could be all kinds of stuff.
And
And they don't know, and I've asked them, Adam's asked them, and they're not saying what they're gonna do with it. And if it's anything like any of the other school properties, they'll hold all the land forever. And why put that onto the land my land that's out there? And if lot 3 is gonna sit there right now, if they wanna make an offer to purchase my lot 3 later on and they wanna subdivide it, then we'll figure it out at that point in time. But to sit there and tell me that I have to do something and put a restriction on it, and like I said in the last meeting, I just make it one whole parcel then. And we already talked about, originally, I think that was in August or September or something like that, August, that if it was one parcel, there would be none of this. I mean, we already hashed through that at that one time. And the only reason I changed it to 3 is because when I submitted it in, I didn't realize that I couldn't just have a deeded access to the other lot. It had to be a full thing, and then it cut the division of my land. And so, I mean, really, I don't want to see it out. I don't want to see cars coming up and down this. And I encourage all of you guys to sit on Highview or Northview at 8 a.m. in the morning and watch the number of cars that come down.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is all those cars that go to the school are going to end up, if they ever do put it in, are going to end up coming all through the subdivision. And you watch them whip down there at 35, 40 miles an hour right after they drop off their kids. And I mean, when I look at this, the one that when I was here, there was the Glen at Muskego Lakes. Now, last time I mentioned that, You guys said, well, that's not the same, those are private roads. Well, if they want to develop that land, that same acreage, they can put private roads in. It doesn't have to cut through my property. And so it's been done, we just proved it was done because you approved this plan already. And it has one main path and some private roads. They can do the exact same thing off of that, and the density wouldn't even be the same. Right now, the zoning is how many houses per acre? Or is it 1.5?
It's not,
It's
it's
not zoned.
institutional, so there's
But I
no
mean,
correlation.
my land is zoned at.
I'm not even sure, because your lots are big, we never came, I'm not even sure. In our most dense area, yeah, it's usually you need 2 acre lots. In the most rural, excuse me, in the most
Okay,
rural area.
so we're not talking a ton of lots anyways, at some point in time, unless you're gonna allow some sort of development like this, where they're gonna have a higher density. And so, again, then what, I mean, they could easily design something, I just did something here, they could put one-way traffic coming off that school and throw some other thing in there, and they could put everything in, be way smaller than this one. And so I don't understand why I have to give them access through potentially give them access through my property in the future. And, you know, it was, no matter when they put the school on, it was still subdividable at that time. They should have had to give me some sort of access, and they didn't.
The big thing
Because
was,
my land is always still subdividable.
the big thing was that they would have done any road dedication, which they did not have to, based upon the nature of their development. They have no public infrastructure for roads. If they would have had any dedication, you're right, that probably would have come to the forefront. They were required based upon what they did. They did no split. No split means no dedication. So if they would have done a dedication, they probably would have had to consider that, but the nature of their development didn't warrant it. You're doing a split, that's the difference. The ordinance has a whole different section that they didn't even look at, that didn't apply to them because they weren't doing a split.
I mean, what we're discussing here today is no different than we've done dozens of times throughout this community since this ordinance has been elected. I mean, the idea is to make sure that what happens, that we have good long-term planning. And I think what we're asking for today of just putting that on the CSM doesn't offer any detriment to him at this point. It gives us more time to make a better informed decision in case something happens in the meantime from either one of these properties. I think that's a bit, you know, having more data in front of us will allow us to make a better informed decision at that time.
Does that school parcel abut North Cape at all?
No.
It does not.
Yeah, it does.
As it is now, it does, but not if they divide it, if they sell it out. They're not going to, the school is not going to be a developer. They'll sell it if they do anything, I would guess.
And that person may develop it.
Right.
You know, kicking the can down the road is the easy way. The big issue is, this is as far as I see it, the school purchased a parcel. They had a remnant parcel sitting out there with no plan for it. Now, because this gentleman wants to divide his property, you're causing him to enrich the school board by having this dedication or this easement or whatever you want to call it. You're also causing the people on Highview to have some potential increase in traffic, which could result in a loss of value of the abutting homes because of the traffic that's increased, because the school failed to determine what they're going to do with this parcel of land. So it just seems to me we're jeopardizing the citizens because the school failed to identify what they're going to do with the land.
Yeah, I guess I completely disagree, because if they would identify that they're going to put a subdivision in there, well, then we'd be sitting here and have the discussion of, we typically would require an access on this property when he subdivides it. So then he'd be
Right,
getting
but that would have been before the school was built and.
No, that would be now, because we
Okay.
can't force it before he comes forward and asks to change anything on his land. So we wouldn't, if the school would have developed, we wouldn't come to him without him being here today and saying, you have to dedicate an access through. Now that he wants to change and divide his property is the only mechanism that would start that.
But they would have at least have to negotiate in good faith, which later on they said, well, we kind of have an access already through your property, or if you ever want to do anything. And that to me doesn't seem fair.
I think the important thing to mention is that the ordinance in 2 or 3 spots keep in mind, the ordinance that's been approved by elected body is the one that's asking for this. It's not the mayor's asking for it, or I'm asking for it, or anyone's asking for it. It's the ordinance, the book of laws the city has adopted that specifically says this should be done. And don't get me wrong, that's why we're here to discuss it, but
And that's
it
what I
says it should be done, period. It's really not a question. This is just, yeah, can we look at it a different way?
Mr. Weiss, is there an overriding reason why you want to subdivide it?
to build a house for my son-in-law and my daughter. That's why I'm subdividing it. Because really, I've already talked to Adam. Personally, I could just build the house on the land as it sits right now.
Right.
And that may be one of my options to do that, is to just build it. And Adam and I already talked about this. He said I could do it. It's just one tax key.
It's a guest house. The only way you could do it is with the guest house, yeah.
Sure. And so it would be it would have to stay in my name and everything, whatever.
Right.
But we couldn't do that. And so then I went in good faith and came in and asked about doing this. And the original thought was that the house would be on the east side of the property. Well, my daughter and son-in-law want to put it on the north side of the property. And so therefore, I just kind of drew it up so that we'd have that over there. And Adam was good at helping me understand how the cul-de-sac had to be and the amount of footage. And then he said, you need to maintain something on this side. And so I just did everything that was asked. And so now I'm being told that if we do three lots now, which I didn't want to do three, I just wanted to do two, but I have to do three now because of the way the road and the cul-de-sac bulb enters in. I have to do three, and three is what causes the issue for me. And so my point being is I would just go back to two and just take the whole side and subdivide it off and be done with it. If my son-in-law wants to do something in the future, then he can wrestle with the whole thing. And maybe by that time the school will know what it wants to do. But even in the future, they're going to have to say, maybe, maybe not. Because you look over where there's a ton of land over by Bay Lane. They're not doing anything with that land. It just sits there, right? So they could do anything with it at any time. And so my point is that why should I set this all up for them? I think it's pretty reasonable. I don't want to have, if I wanted to subdivide that land, I would have done it a long time ago. It's not my goal. I just want to have a couple parcels. And that's it. I wanted to have spots for my kids, to have 2 parcels to build houses. And my thought was if we went with the third, if my son wanted to put a house in eventually, then he could have that parcel. That's the only reason I did it. So it's pretty simple. I'm not trying to make it overly complicated.
May I speak for 1 second?
Please.
In all transparency, I will be abstaining tonight. I'm working with Dave on house plans for his son. But one thing that I wanted to ask or mention, when this was brought forth before, we did discuss the school's access and saying that they had to have 2 points if they were to do a subdivision there. And I thought we all determined that they do have 2 points of access. And really, this would be a 3rd point of access, wouldn't it?
No, they have 0 points of access to it right now. They have a possibility of one off of Highland and a possible one if they're the developer and they, come through the front somehow would be for an emergency. That's possible. But right now we don't have enough data. And that's why I'm saying let's wait on this until if we have more time that we can to make a decision until we know what's going to go on there one way or another. Let's wait and find out what's going to happen there, because it doesn't harm anyone right now by waiting. If you force us to put in, if we're forced to follow the ordinance as written, we're going to take a dedication on here, which I don't think we should do. And we'll probably take a dedication in the wrong spot, which I don't think, which is another thing I don't think we should do. So my whole thing is to do the best planning we can. Is let's wait until we possibly have more data points in front of us.
Well, one of the things I asked a few weeks back, I asked if there was an ordinance or something. At that point in time, you had shared with me you're just trying to do good planning. Because I wanted to read the specific ordinance, what it said.
We provided, I sent you 3 specific sections that talk about extending any kind of infrastructure, including roads or utilities, to the furthest extent of development. That's what that means. That
Okay.
means if someone by you has ability to utilize those same improvements, they should have that right. Because we want connections in our water systems, we want connections in sewer systems, we want connections in our roadway systems, we don't want long dead end cul-de-sacs. That's why that ordinance written, and there were 3 specific sections, 2 that are almost verbatim the same.
Yeah.
And then 1 that's worded a little bit differently.
Yes.
If, excuse me, if we were to push this down the road for future, is there a way to put a sunset where the school had to act no later than a date for them to make a decision?
Not cleanly.
Okay?
I mean, we could try anything, it's just not as clean.
I mean, the cost for me to develop that last parcel is gonna be enormous, because I'm gonna have to put a road down, build a cul-de-sac, everything to put 1 more house on. And that's what you guys said in that, isn't that what you said?
I mean, yeah, I mean, the way the ordinance reads, you should be doing it today for your daughter's house. That's how the ordinance reads, once again. I think the council, the plan commission, I think, was pretty much in unison saying, hey, we're not gonna make you do that even though you should be doing that today no matter what. They're saying, hey, we're not gonna make you do that unless you further split lot 1 or do anything on lot 3. So if you just do your plan now, which is the 1 lot for your daughter and son-in-law, that doesn't make you do anything additional. But if you do something more than that original concept, so something on lot 3 or something further on lot 1, then that would kick that in. Yeah, I mean, that's very clear in the ordinance too.
And that's gonna make a very expensive lot 3 for me to develop. I mean, think about it, that's
Sure.
hundreds of feet of road just to do that. And so
So the
basically I
likelihood
plan on
it's gonna
doing
affect-
nothing with lot 3 at this
So,
point.
and the likelihood it would affect you then by us doing this is.
Right.
zero.
Well, then I would just prefer then at that point in time to just do a 2-lot deal, and I'll just subdivide it in half. I'll just redraw the CSM.
So you're withdrawing your,
Well, that's what I would do then, because if the understanding is from the previous one, you guys would just approve that as it is with no other stuff to it, then I would prefer to do that. And I will just draw it into 2 lots, then you don't have anything to worry about, it's just the 2 of us there on that side.
does that work, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, we can just, that's a minor, I mean, if anything, less lots is better than adding more. So we would just,
Vote this
we could
down.
just make a motion, I think we could just make a motion to say, change anything in the resolution that references 3 lots to 2 lots. I think it could be that simple. I don't think it has to come back here unless the council, unless the plan commission wants to see it again. I think we can just amend that in the resolution. And then when we do our technical review, which the comments are coming any day now, I know from our engineering consultants, we'll just look at it as 2 lots, not 3. I think it can be pretty simple, it's just amending.
Just to clarify my own mind, lot 1 becomes, just as I see it here, and lot 2 and 3 merge into lot 2?
Lot 2, we'd just draw it all the way down to the cul-de-sac bulb, and that would be
Yeah,
it.
and then, I mean, it still gives you the option of splitting lot 2 in the future.
In the future,
Right.
yes.
And then we'll go through it at that point in time. But
Yeah,
at least
I
at this
mean,
point in time, there won't be any.
Then you're kicking that down the road, but by that time, you might know what the school is, and you'll be in a position to negotiate with them.
I'm okay
what
with
you mean.
that, and that's what I said last time, I was okay with that, because that's what we originally talked about and agreed upon in this room as a kind of preliminary deal.
Sure.
We didn't have an actual vote, but it was preliminary, but yes.
Well, if you're okay with that, I'm certainly
Yeah,
okay
yeah,
with that.
I can support that.
Yeah, I think we would just need to make an amendment in the resolution that just clarifies it's 2 lots, not 3, per the request of the applicant. And then the only other thing, actually, I think, let me look at the resolution. There was one other item I wanted to look at changing, but that might be a moot point now, let's see. Yeah, no, I don't think we need to change anything else then, if that's all we're doing. And then if you're saying that you aren't going to require any dedication at this time, if we are going to kind of push it down the road, because I think, I mean, the thing you gotta remember is the ordinance, whether you're doing a 1 lot, 2 lot, 5 lot, 10 lot, doesn't make a difference. The code is the same thing with the extension. Even though the conceptual discussion, that was obviously the way that Plan Commission was going. As a planner, I would still recommend putting that verbiage that any future splits would still cause this to be relooked at. But that's kind of inherently already there. So I would think Amendment 1 would be changing 2 lots, 3 lots to 2 lots in the resolution, any references, that's simple enough. And then still requiring that note that, yeah, any future splits or construction other than one home on the vacant lot, right? That's the plan, is one home, and obviously outbuildings and stuff don't affect that, would require it to come back just like anything else.
Is that kind of redundant? I mean, that's already there.
I mean, yeah, it is redundant. So whether you guys want it there, want it not there, the biggest reason that we would maybe put it there is if, let's say,
I think you should have it there.
yeah, if Mr. Weiss, if his daughter and son-in-law ever decide to sell it or split it, it's making a future buyer aware. Let's say they just sell their house. That buyer should know what they're in for. That's why we do a lot of the notes we do on CSMs is for buyer beware. Try to make informed buyers so it doesn't come back and cause the seller or the city headache.
So that should be added to it.
Yeah, I think we already had
Again,
that
I
one.
think
This one talks about it here, so I'm just.
itself, but if that's what you say has to be in there, I would.
It's
they're
my
gonna-
recommendation.
They're gonna
it's-
have to come to the plan commission anyways if they wanna subdivide it, and at that same point in time, they're gonna figure it out. Just as I'm figuring it out, because no one disclosed it to me in 2003 when I bought my land. So,
Yeah. I strongly recommend we have that in there. Will somebody make the motion to amend, to change paragraph 11 from 3 to 2-lot land division and add a note will be required on the CSM that if there is any land divisions of the properties within the CSM, that the cul-de-sac will need to be discussed at Plan Commission, Council and/or Public Works and Safety to determine if the cul-de-sac must be extended and improved to city standards. Does that fit it, Adam?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sounds like good wording. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Any further discussion on the resolution as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And passes unanimously
Abstain.
with one abstention.
so Adam, I just need to get you a new CSM.
What I would suggest is just hold off because per engineering consultants, any day now I should be getting their review and I'll get those comments to you. So rather than have them change it just to resubmit it, wait till I give you these comments and just make one round of changes altogether.
Perfect. Thank
Alright.
you so much.
You okay?
Thank you.
Good night.
Moving on to new business for consideration, Resolution PC 075-2020, approval of a 3-month review for Fry Automotive located on Loomis Road, tax key number 996.002.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Let Adam start.
The site was much better than we've seen in the past, so I will definitely want to make that known. The aisles were passable, all that kind of stuff. There were, a few extra cars in some spots where they shouldn't be, so a few things outside, but those very well might have been just outside for the day while they were working and move back in the evening. So pretty good, heading in the right direction, I want to say, and I think it's really important, just wanted to make sure JJ was here and stuff, because coming up in March is the next review that's due, and I know that's usually the busy time for you, that we just want to, I think, stress keeping things tip-top for that, because that's usually historically the bad time.
So one of the things that we are saying, in addition to what it sounds like Alderman Kubaki wants to add to this, start planning on, I know that springtime is you're busy, that's where you make all your money and everything else. Start thinking now how you're going to address that, because we don't want to go through this circus every 3 months of all that.
So the one in February, March is still the big one compared to these other, like today?
Well, that's when normally all of them get done, and the way yours was set up is the Plan Commission, I think last time wanted a couple 3-month reviews, and that's when the natural 3-month one would fall.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, Alderman Kubaki?
JJ, we're just putting you on notice.
Yeah, I know.
And you gotta put, from our standpoint,
I know.
we're supposed to, be uniform throughout the city, and everyone follows the same rules, and, we can't say, he's just a heck of a nice guy. We can't do that.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, just so you know.
It's like I said, it would look much better than it has in the past, so thank you. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Here to,
Yeah.
We're definitely in the right direction.
Yep.
And we're happy, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
So just
All right.
want to kind of point out that, please,
It's coming,
I know you're going to get busier, and I know how that gets with businesses where you just, you're concentrating on making money, not what the city's bothering you on, but
Right.
I know how much
Think
you
of
like
us.
buying cars and,
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I'm slowing down though, but.
good, good, good.
We all do.
Thank you.
any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
right.
Thank you,
Thank
JJ.
you.
Thank you.
Moving on to resolution PC 076 2020, approval of building site and operation plan amendment for Thomas Dahlman at Valley Green Golf Course located on North Cape Road, tax key number 2256.994.
Move, oh, you can move to approve?
Yep.
Second.
Discussion.
This is a real simple one. Valley Green is putting in a little patio in the back, which that can just be handled through a zoning permit, but they wanted to put a gazebo on it because it's commercial structure, a commercial property. They need to come to plan commission. Real simple, open air structure, shingle roof, no issues at all. Recommending approval.
Questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Resolution PC 077 2020, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Cornerstone Development for the property located along Loomis Road, West Champions Drive, with a bunch of tax key numbers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
This one is a pretty simple request. As you guys remember, I think a couple months ago now, we had same applicant come in because they wanted to change 4 of the buildings that had 2-car garages into 3-car garages as they were realizing their market and their buyers. That was a desirable feature they wanted. After they kind of are tweaking their site plan and moving along nice and quickly here, they realize there's 2 more buildings that they can gain this extra space out of. So they are asking to add 2 additional buildings, which are circled on the site plan provided, as well as they wanted to make the clubhouse a little bit bigger, really kind of just elongating it. Same style of architecture as was approved before, just making it a little bit bigger to accommodate the more residents that are here. But staff doesn't see any problems with these. We just wanted to bring it back as it was making a few of these buildings a little bigger, and thought the Plan Commission would want to be aware of that. But same architecture as we approved before.
Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Miscellaneous business?
Nothing
We have
here.
none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 6:33. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.